Hello, everyone. Welcome to First Impressions. My name is Charles Theodore Monk. I am a Tutlo tutor and I will be your host today. If you are here and you can hear me, please let me know by saying something in the chat. You can go ahead and say hi, hello, or simply yes, I can hear you. That way, I know you guys can hear me and there are no issues with my volume or my video. Once again, if you are here and you hear me, please just let me know by saying something in the chat. Guys, we are gonna wait an extra couple minutes to give other people time to join us in our webinar. We don't want to leave people behind. However, we don't want to waste our time while we wait for them. What we're going to do while we wait for them is we'll do a quick breakdown of everything we're talking about today so that you can know what to expect from our topic. Obviously, we are going to be discussing first impressions. It's given away in our title. And when we see people for the first time, we get an impression of them. But it goes both ways. When people see us for the first time, we give an impression to them of what we are like. And we never want to give off a bad first impression because that will make it a negative experience. People might have the wrong perspective of us. So today, we're going to go ahead and talk about how first impressions are important. Because we see people and get their first impressions all the time, like I said. But we also give off our first impressions to people who see us for the first time. So today we're going to discuss all the components of a good first impression. I have divided our webinar into a few parts. First off, we're going to talk about the two parts of a first impression. We're going to discuss them individually and break them down as to why they are important in a first impression. And then finally, we will discuss how to give off a strong or how to give a good first impression. If this is your first time joining us in a webinar, our webinar length is around 30 minutes, so a half hour, which means we'll do our best to wrap up at 11:30. Maybe a couple minutes early, maybe a couple minutes late, but I want to be respectful of you guys' time, so I will make sure we finish around that 11:30 time slot. When it comes down to our webinars, we have a chat box available for you. I encourage you to use it to keep in touch with everyone, make conversation, or to make comments on anything I am speaking about. Also, you will feel free to ask your questions. If there is something you don't understand completely, or there is something maybe confusing you, or you just want to ask a question, you can feel free to do so during our webinar, but I encourage you to save them for our Q&A towards the end of our webinar. That will be specifically for questions and answering, because when I'm speaking, I might miss you asking a question in the chat because my focus isn't there. But during the Q&A, I will make sure to focus to give you guys answers to your questions. The last thing I want to encourage you guys to do is I encourage you to take down notes. Grab something you can take down notes on, maybe a pen, a piece of paper, or even a pencil. If you're feeling lucky, maybe even your smartphone or computer. I encourage you to take down notes because it can last longer than our webinar. What I mean by that is when I'm speaking, obviously you will hear what I'm saying. But once our webinar time is done, everything I'm saying goes out the window. It's all up to your memory. And one of the best ways we can help our memory is to take down notes. We don't want information in our right and out the left ear as soon as the webinar is done. So I encourage you, grab something for note taking. It's not mandatory, but I highly encourage you so that when we're done and even in the future, you can look over your notes and study on your own. We've waited a few extra minutes and some other people have joined us. So let's go ahead now and begin our topic about first impressions. And I always enjoy and really believe that starting off with a good foundation is important with that understanding of our webinar. So let's break it down like this. What is an impression? An impression is three things: the idea, the feeling, or the opinion about someone. And a lot of the times, if you make a first impression, that will stick with a person for a long time. What do I mean by that? If you meet someone for the first time and you're in a bad mood, they might think you're a cranky person. Maybe you're always mad or angry. The same thing. If you meet someone for the first time and they are cranky or in a bad mood, then that might give you a negative impression of them. But if you're happy or they're happy and kind, then that will be the first impression. Remember that, the three things that will come into importance later. Impression is about the idea, the feeling, or the opinion about someone. So throughout our webinar today, I want you guys to have a question that's in the back of your heads throughout it. And it is this: is a first impression important? I want you guys to have this in the back of your head so that as we discuss certain materials today, you can always understand, is a first impression important for you? Now, in relation to having a first impression, it can be broken down into this very important quote that I love a lot. And it says, you will never get a second chance to make a first impression. Because a first impression only happens once, right? Your first car, you can only have one first car. Your first university, you can only have one first university. Your first sister, your first friend, your first guitar, your first pair of shoes. Once the first is done, you can never take it back. You can never have another first. It always happens only one time, and then it moves on and becomes your second, your third, and so on and so forth. What he's saying is that when you make a first impression, you only have one shot. You only got one chance to make it count. If you give off a bad first impression, more than likely they might have a negative thought of you, and you have to do your best to make sure in the future you behave a lot better or you make yourself seem a lot nicer. But along those lines, it doesn't mean to give you an infinite amount of pressure where you always have to be on your best behavior, because there are times and situations where you might be just having a bad day. But if you meet a person, always try to put your best foot forward. Show the best part of you so that they will know what you're about. Even if you are having a bad day, try your best to smile, be respectful, and be nice so that you can have a good first impression, because you will never have a second first impression. And your first impression is what people will think the most about you. If you give off a good first impression, more often than not in the future, anytime they see you, or even if they talk about you, they will have some good things to say or some good expectations. And the same thing, if you get a bad first impression, that is how they will think of you. And that's how you will think of others, the same way. If they give you a good first impression, you will think they are fantastic people. But if you give off a bad first impression, or they give off a bad first impression, you might not have the best picture of each other. Now, our first impressions can be broken down into two main categories. And those two main categories are up on our screen right now when we refer to them as our appearance and personality. These are the two main components of a first impression, or of any impression. With that being said, we're going to go ahead, talk about each of these, and talk about them in depth. Learn why these two matter. And let's go ahead and start with our first one, and that is our appearance. And appearance is simply the way someone looks. And pictured at the bottom right of our screen is a picture of many different types of appearances. You have some guys, you have some girls. Some have short hair, some have long hair. Some have no hair. Some are smiling a big, others aren't smiling as big. But the appearance is simply the way someone looks. You can describe them by their skin color, their eyes, how big of a smile they have. And there are a lot of basic vocabulary terms when it talks about a person's appearance. You have things such as short, tall, big, small, white, brown, long hair, short hair. That is how a person looks on the outside. So that is what we're talking about today. Your appearance is the outside, and your personality is the inside. But they both equally matter. You can't have a good appearance and a bad personality. And you shouldn't have bad personality and good appearance. You gotta be able, in a first impression, to give the best of both. So let's break down why our appearance is important. All right. First one, why appearance matters is it's because that is your image. It's the impression shown to the public. Just like at the picture, at the bottom right of our screen, that person's image is very colorful. It's very bright. Bright colors associate with happiness, with joy, and he looks a little formal. He has a jacket on. But if you're wearing maybe a hoodie, a jacket, all black colors, that's your image to the public. Maybe it looks a little dark. If you're wearing maybe a certain type of outfit, it fits in with a certain subculture. Maybe hip hop, maybe gothic, maybe R&B. Whatever it might be, your image matters because that is how people will view you based on your appearance. And everybody has different images. But the thing that matters is being true to yourself. Being yourself in your image. You don't want to love dark colors and dress like the person at the bottom right of your screen because that's not who you are. Just like if you love dark colors but you're dressing in all white, that's not who you are. You gotta be true to yourself. Because when a person sees someone, they see the way they dress, they see the way they look, their image, that is how they will get an impression of you based off of your image. The second thing is appearance matters because it's your portrayal. It's the representation of you. Everyone has a unique style. Everyone has a certain haircut they like, certain clothes they really like, certain colors they love, certain colors they hate. But it is your portrayal. People believe that your appearance is a portrayal of who you are inside. If you are a very joyful person, you will show that in your style. If you're a very relaxed person, you will show that in your style and your appearance. For me, I am one of those people. I love hip hop. And as you can see, I got a pretty good collection of sneakers in the back of my video because that is my image. That is my portrayal. Obviously, there are times where I have to wear some formal attire. But if I'm just strolling through the streets, going to the grocery store, hanging out with friends, I'm a very relaxed person. I love wearing sneakers, jackets, pants, jeans, sweatpants. I love those stuff because that's who I am. I'm a very relaxed person. And if I switch it up and I end up liking to wear some formal attire, maybe some dress shoes and a suit, that's not who I am because that's not my image. That's not my portrayal. People know me as a relaxed person because it shows in my appearance. The third thing, vocabulary term we can talk about with why appearance matters is your depiction. Depiction is the way something is described in words, and this talks about how someone can describe who you are. Let's look at the bottom right of our screen, and we see two pictures, a picture on the left and a picture on the right. And like I mentioned before, this can be how your appearance is important. Why? Because the people on the left look very relaxed. They are wearing some sweatpants, a sweatshirt, and some sneakers. And then if you're describing them in words, you're going to say they're relaxed, they're cozy. But on the right, It looks a little more casual wear. The person's wearing, it looks like to be a short summer dress and a jacket on top. And that is their depiction. Somebody describes them in words. If you're wearing a suit, you'll be described as formal, business attire. But if you're wearing some sneakers or you're wearing some flip flops and some shorts, that is their depiction. And that is how other people get an impression of you without seeing you, right? If you see someone on the street wearing some bright colors and you're going to tell your family or your friend about that, you're going to say, that person seemed very joyful because he was wearing some very bright colors. That is the depiction, the way something is described in words. Now we're going to go ahead and transition to the second part about our impressions, and that is going to be our personality. So appearance is from a distance, right? The way people see you, and that is how they get an impression. But the personality aspect is just as important because your personality is the characteristics or qualities from an individual's character. Personality is a huge word. It's a big definition. So we'll break it down a little bit more. But remember, your appearance is your outside, the way you look, while your personality is who you are on the inside, the way you are as a person. Now, when it comes down to your appearance, that would be more of how people just see you, right? But your personality is when people meet you, have a conversation with you. So let's break down this big vocabulary definition into smaller pieces so we can have a better understanding of a personality. And we'll start off with the first part, our characteristics, a feature belonging to someone. And we see some characteristics at the bottom of your screen, right? We have patience and things along those lines, honesty, dedication. And your characteristics are sort of things that are shared with people, right? There are other people who have good patience. Other people have good honesty. But where it gets a little more specific is your qualities, the distinct attribute of someone. Strong, leader, friend, power. So you can think of it like this. Your characteristics are things that you share in common with other people, right? Other people could be honest. Other people are patient. Other people are dedicated. But your qualities is what makes you you. What is unique about you? What is distinct about you? Those are your qualities. While your characteristics are things you can have in common with other people. Now, other people could have similar qualities to you, right? Other people could be leaders. Other people could be strong, a good friend. But your qualities is what separates you from other people. So remember, think about it like that. Characteristics are things that a lot of people have, but your qualities are the things unique to you. And they can all be summarized in your character, things distinctive to a person. What makes you you? If someone is to give an account, if someone is to describe your personality, give someone a depiction of who you are as a person, they will talk about your character, your personality, along with your appearance, right? They're going to describe you to someone. This person loves wearing black, but he's a very nice person. He's super respectful. It could be the other way around, and they can end up saying, hey, this person loves wearing bright colors, but they are very shy. So that is why your appearance and your personality are the two sides of the story of first impressions. All right, I hope everyone understands that, and everyone's on the same train of thought, right? So if you're talking about a first impression, the way it's divided is your outside looks, your appearance, because that is your image, the way people perceive who you are as a person. And then you have your personality, your characteristics that you share with other people, but your qualities, the things that make you different or you unique compared to other people. And they are all summarized in your character, who you are. So, now that we've gone over this, let me just give you guys a quick tips, 3 quick things we can look at to make sure we give off a good first impression. And I want to start with this one. Very important that we be appropriate and respectful. When you meet someone for the first time, you're not going to behave as if you've known them for 10 years or you've known them all your life. That's not how it's going to be, right? You have to do your best to be appropriate and respectful. As hard as it is, sometimes there are difficult people that we meet, and there might be some situations where you're just having a bad day and you don't want to deal with talking to new people. But a good first impression, you have to be appropriate and respectful. Treat the other person well, and they should treat you like you treat them. Another thing to always keep in mind is to be positive. And the one way we can really do that is to smile. Be positive and smile. If you're standing there with a plain face and you look like this, you don't look very positive. You don't look friendly. And that won't give you a good first impression. You have to be positive. Make sure people understand that this is who you are. You are a positive person. And let's wrap up with the third major point, and that is to be yourself. No matter what, you have to be yourself. Because remember, I said, what makes you you? That is what people will remember. If you are a copycat or you're a cutout of everyone else in the world, there is nothing distinctive about you. There is nothing that makes you unique. And you don't want to be just like everyone else. As much pressure as there is to be like everyone else, it's better to be yourself. Why? Because that makes you unique. That makes you you. And you will stand out among the crowd. Now, we're going to start a quick review of everything we've discussed about today. All right? And we're going to do a little easy exercise, and I want some involvement from you guys. And we're going to do a true or false. Normally, if you keep in touch with the webinars I host, we do fill in the blanks or matching. Today, we're going to do some true or false. So up on our screen is a statement, and I want you to tell me, is this a true statement based off what we learned today, or is it a false statement based off the topics we've discussed? Number 1, character is the summary of your qualities and characteristics. All right, so to discern this, we have to look at these two, your qualities and your characteristics. Remember, we discussed our appearances, right? That was the 2 things, our first impressions. We talked about our appearance and our personality. And these are 2 terms we discussed in your personality. Now, is this true based off what we learned? Is your character the summary or the combination of your qualities and characteristics? Or is this false? Let me know, and then I'll give you guys the answer and we'll move on to the second one. For those of you who answered true or thought true, that's the correct answer. Because remember, when we discussed it earlier, if we're going over our characteristics, those are things we share in common with other people. Your qualities is what make you, you. And your character is the things that are distinctive about you, the summary of your qualities and characteristics. The second thing is going to talk about the first half of stuff we discussed when we discussed our appearance. Now, this says your portrayal is the impression shown to the public. All right, so if we're discussing this, remember, we talked about our appearance, right? We talked about the way we look, and we broke it down into 3 things. We have portrayal as one of them, we have image as the other, and we have depiction as another one. So, based off this one, is this a false statement? Is your portrayal the impression shown to the public? Or is that something else? Is that one of the other 3 we discussed? I'll give you guys 10 more seconds. It's a little trickier than the stuff that we went over in number 1. But if you went ahead and you thought that this is a false statement, this is not correct, that's the proper answer. The correct answer, it's your image is the impression shown to the public. This was a little more difficult, but remember, your image is the impression shown to the public, what people see about you. Your portrayal is the representation of who you are as a person. All right? So, I hope that didn't confuse you. If you have any questions, we're about to go into our Q&A, but let me give you a quick summary of everything we discussed. All right? So, remember the importance of a first impression. Your impression, you can only give one first impression. There's only one first chance at everything, right? You're not going to get 10 first impressions with the same person. And remember, we talked about the two main components when it comes down to our impressions, your appearance as well as your personality. And then we talked about what are some ways to give a good first impression? Be respectful, be positive, and be yourself. So now we're finally at that Q&A that I mentioned earlier. And this is the time, if you have any questions, go ahead, ask it in the chat, and I will do my best to answer those questions for you. However, if you don't have any questions and there's nothing you want to go over, you go ahead now and we are going to transition, and I'm going to ask you guys to answer 2 poll questions for me. Question 1 is up on our screen. Did you find the webinar useful? So I want to know from you guys, was this a useful topic to talk about? Was it beneficial? Was it worth it? If so, go ahead, click yes. If not, click no. There's no reason to be shy. We want to know so that in future webinars, we can give you similar topics if you like this one. And if you didn't like this one, then you shouldn't. And we'll hope to give you some different topics in the future. The second poll I'm going to ask you guys to fill out for me is, would you like to participate in a similar event in the future? So I want to know, would you guys want to register for another webinar again in the future, either with me as your host or with somebody else hosting this topic for you? The reason we want to know that, the reason we want to hear from you guys is because if you are, I encourage you, check out the list of webinars we provide. There are some in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. If any topic is interesting, I encourage you, register for it, and you won't regret it. We're about at the end of our time. We have about a minute and a half left, but I want to quickly remind you to check out our social media. Check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel as well. You will see some updates posted from us at Tutlo, as well as some learning topics that will be very beneficial for everyone. Guys, we're about at the end of our time, so I want to say a quick thank you from me to you guys for coming into this webinar. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you guys took something out of it. I want to encourage you to give off the best first impression that you can. And I encourage you to go ahead and do some of the things we talked about today. Try focusing on your appearance as well as your personality when giving off a first impression to someone. And try our 3 how-tos. Be respectful, be positive, and most importantly, be yourself. Until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe as always, and goodbye for now.